You know, from the time we're kids, we're taught to be logical, to be rational, to make sense. But what if the best solutions, the most powerful ideas, don't make sense at all? What if they're actually the complete opposite? Let me show you what I mean. We'll start with a little puzzle. All right, so imagine this. A charity is trying to raise money. They send out 4 different kinds of fundraising letters to see what works. The first one is hand-delivered by a volunteer. The second is on really nice, high-quality paper. The third is a different shape, more like a portrait. And the fourth one, well, the fourth one logically points out that any donation can be boosted by a 25% tax rebate from the government. So, take a guess. Which one of those do you think brought in the least money? And the answer is the tax rebate. Yeah, you heard that right. The single most logical, economically sound reason to give more money actually made people give less. In fact, it didn't just reduce the average donation, it even reduced the number of people who gave anything at all. It's a perfect example of how real human behavior just completely shatters our neat and tidy logical models. And that right there brings us to our first big idea, the logic trap. This is our deep-seated belief that every problem has a single rational answer. And that belief, well, it can make us completely blind how people actually think, feel, and act. You know, this isn't even a new problem. The father of economics himself, Adam Smith, warned us about this more than 200 years ago. He cautioned against what he called the man of system, the kind of person who thinks people are just like chess pieces you can move around a board. But he knew the truth. On the giant chessboard of life, every single piece has a mind of its own. So here's the bottom line. We fall into the logic trap whenever we try to apply the nice, clean, predictable rules of physics to the messy, unpredictable world of human psychology. We're searching for a simple formula, but human motivation, it just doesn't work like that. Which means we need a totally new way of thinking, a different operating system for understanding people, one that goes way beyond simple A to B reasoning. So welcome to the world of what we'll call psychologic. So what is psychologic? Well, think of it as the secret language of the human mind. It's all the unconscious shortcuts, the emotional triggers, and the little clues from our environment that really drive our decisions. Now, it's not illogical or irrational. It's just working with a completely different rulebook than the one we'd use for, say, a math problem. And here's the key difference right here. In the world of physics, the opposite of a good idea is always a bad one, right? You can't make a plane fly higher by adding more weight. But in psychology, the opposite of a good idea can be another good idea. You could persuade someone with a super long, detailed argument that proves you've done your homework. Or you could persuade them with a really short one that makes a decision seem like a total no-brainer. Both opposites can work brilliantly. So let's see this stuff in action. Because once you start looking for psychologic, I'm telling you, you see it everywhere. You see it creating incredible value out of what seems like absolutely nothing. It is basically modern-day alchemy. You see, the old alchemists failed because they were trying to physically change lead into gold. They were focused on the atoms, but they missed the real trick. You don't have to change what something is. You just have to change how people feel about it. That's where the real magic is. Okay, for example, let's say you're a fish wholesaler and you've got this huge supply of a perfectly good fish, but it has the worst name imaginable, the Patagonian toothfish. I mean, come on, that doesn't exactly sound delicious, does it? So what do? You rename it. You call it the Chilean sea bass. And just like that, boom, an ugly, unwanted fish becomes a 5-star restaurant delicacy. The fish didn't change one bit. Only our perception of it did. That is pure alchemy. And this little trick has been used over and over and over again. The totally unappealing slime head became the popular orange roughy. The goosefish got a gourmet makeover as monkfish. And the humble pilchard, it was rebranded as the chic Cornish sardine. And that simple name change revived an entire fishing industry. And this isn't just some modern marketing gimmick. Let's go back to the 18th century. Frederick the Great of Prussia had a massive problem. His people were facing starvation, but they absolutely refused to eat this strange new vegetable called the potato. All his logical arguments about nutrition just fell flat. So what did he do? He used psychologic. He decided to make the potato seem exclusive and high status. First, he declared it a royal vegetable. Then he planted a bunch in a special royal garden and had it guarded, but, very poorly. And of course, people assumed that anything worth guarding must be valuable, so they started sneaking in at night to steal the potatoes.
By making it seem forbidden, he made it desirable. Genius.
This kind of thinking even affects things that are supposed to be completely objective, like hiring decisions. There was this fascinating study that found if you have a finalist pool of 4 candidates and only one of them is a woman, her statistical chance of getting hired is literally 0. But, and this is amazing, just change the context, make the pool 3 women and 1 man, and suddenly the likelihood of hiring a woman jumps to 67%. The candidates are the same. The context is what changed the entire outcome.
So what about a really complex problem like crime? Well, instead of just adding more police, one experiment tried a psychological solution. In a high-crime area, they painted the faces of babies and toddlers on the metal shutters of the shops. And what happened? The simple presence of these Disney faces with their big eyes had a calming effect on the whole area, and crime rates dropped. It sounds crazy, but it worked.
So, look, this is more than just a collection of cool stories and fun facts. This is actually a powerful toolkit you can use for solving problems. So, how can you start thinking like an alchemist? Okay, 3 simple things. First, always question the real why. People don't just floss because it's healthy. They floss because the minty tingle feels clean and satisfying. You have to find the real, often hidden motivation. Second, dare to be trivial. A waiter asking still or sparkling instead of any water for the table sells way more bottled water because it makes saying just tap feel a little awkward. Small tweaks can have massive results. And third, find value in reframing. A cost of $17 a month might sound a bit steep, but reframing that as just 50p a day, that sounds totally reasonable.
And above all else, never, ever forget the main lesson here. In the world of psychologic, the opposite of a good idea can also be a fantastic idea. So don't be afraid to test the weird stuff, the silly ideas, the things that seem to make no sense. That is very often where the real magic is hiding.
And this brilliant RSVP card just sums it all up perfectly. Logic says you either attend or you decline. Simple. But human emotion is so much more complicated than that, right? We have all felt the difference between enthusiastically attending a party and regretfully attending one. This little card just gets it. It acknowledges that messy human reality. Which really leaves us with one final big question to think about. In a world that's actually driven by messy, complicated psychological feelings, is trying to rely on pure logic the most illogical thing we could possibly do?